The views and opinions expressed by the participants on this show are not necessarily those of Stewart Information Services Corporation, Stewart Title, or Stewart Insurance. Before you make any investment, you should seek the advice of your investment advisor or attorney.
Whether you're a real estate broker, realtor, homeowner, buyer, or seller, everything matters when it comes to real estate. This is Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. Stewart Title's Bill Knapik and guests open the door to what really matters in owning, buying, and selling real estate. And now, Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title, brought to you by Stewart Insurance. Here to inform, entertain, and inspire, Bill Knapik.
Welcome to the show. It is Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. I'm your host, Bill Knapik. Thank you for joining us during this wonderful holiday season. Wishing you the best. All of us at Stewart Title and Stewart Insurance are wishing you the best holiday season, a strategic time of year for so many things to have enjoyment, but also as we wind down the year, close 2021 and look ahead at 2022, our holiday gift for you is our chief economist. He's our guest for the full show today. And of course, we'll have an insurance segment as well. But we're going to talk about real estate, what's going on, not just in Houston, Texas, but around the country with our chief economist. He is Dr. Ted C. Jones. Ted has his handle here on the Houston area in a major way, but also all around the country as he makes many appearances all year long and does so many things and appearances here in Houston that we're going to talk about too if you're right here in the Houston area. So Stewart.com/radio if you want to hear the show again, maybe take a few notes and hear what he has to say, but also you can access the other 400 plus shows again at Stewart.com/radio. And now here he is, our chief economist, one of our many distinctions at Stewart Title. Our chief economist is Dr. Ted C. Jones. And as I like to say through the years, he is also the eighth wonder in the real estate world. Dr. Jones. Ted, welcome to the show.
Man, it's great to be back, Bill. And by the way, to everyone out there, happy holidays and Merry Christmas. It's neat to be on your year-end show. I have to tell you that.
It's a pivotal show, and if you tune into the YouTube video, I am wearing my Christmas Hallmark flannel shirt, my lumberjack shirt, so that's one way I'm celebrating here on the show. But it's exciting. It's strategic that you're here at this time because, wow, what a year. Who knows what's around the corner? But if anybody does, you have your finger on the pulse because 24/7, I tell people, I just said this on the other show, you are accessing your key indicators at all times to bring forth information for all of us here in Houston, Texas, but also around the United States. So let's start out. Well, maybe we'll go three ways here today. We'll look back at 2021. Is there anything that surprised you? And then later we'll look at where we're at, and then we'll look into the future as we begin right now. So this past year, Ted, what are some of your observations, and did anything really was a major surprise to you?
So what was a big surprise to me up front was how well the stock market did.
Yes.
And I'm a Wall Street guy. You know, Stewart's traded on the New York Stock Exchange. I was director of investor relations. And for the first 17 years, my almost 25 years here with Stewart also. And I think, what was it? Greenspan used to have this term, irrational exuberance. And I think we were pretty much there. And when I say that, let me play this out. And by the way, I'm going to talk about people buying stock. I'm not talking about any companies. And I don't drive a Tesla. If you do, I think it's one of the most innovative vehicles that's ever been built. I will tell you that up front. But Tesla, get this, they think that last year in 2021, they're going to have built and sold around the entire world about 900,000 vehicles. Globally, we think about 77 million new vehicles were built and sold in 2021 or were done before the year end. That means Tesla accounts for 1.2% or thereabouts of all new car sales last year globally, 1.2%. But if you go back to October 25th, and this is one of the dates that was, all we're going to do is look at closing stock prices. Oh, and remember, I'm not picking on Tesla. I think it's a very innovative company. I'm questioning why people pay so much for certain stocks. Tesla's just one of those, multitudes of those. The meme stocks, GameStop, AMC, all those type things. Amazon, it just comes online. But on the 25th of October, the market cap for Tesla was $1.01 trillion. All you do is you take the closing stock price times the number of shares outstanding. the combined market cap on that same day, combined of all these companies, Toyota, Volkswagen, BYD, which is a great big Chinese car manufacturer, Daimler, they make Mercedes, GM, BMW, Ford, Stellantis, they make Fiat, Honda, and another Chinese company, SAIC, was identical to the value of Tesla. Even those companies made and delivered more than 50 million vehicles. That's insanity. That's utter, absolute insanity. And we can't, it's not like Tesla's going to be making 10 million cars next year because you can't spool up production that quick. Although some of those indeed will probably be eventually made in Texas because the new
that's right,
the new plant coming in the Austin market area. So I am concerned that one of the surprising things was how well the stock market did, but as we've seen this past week, it peeled off a little bit. I forecast this a couple of months ago. I thought from the peaks we've seen that we could see the stock market drop 20 to 30% on average. That's not every stock. Some stocks will go up, some will go down. But that's just what I think our overall overvaluation is. Some stocks are undervalued today, so there's great buys to be had out there. So stock market was one of my big, wow, I didn't expect that. But the neatest thing about stocks is you're either going to invest in bonds, and of course we'll talk inflation in a minute. That was another thing that, it surprised me on inflation, not how much it was, but how we haven't responded interest rate wise. You don't want to buy a bond now because if interest rates go up, your bond becomes worth less valuable if you don't hold it to maturity, to duration. So the stock market's risky, and that kind of leaves real estate. And I think that real estate has indeed been the sweet spot. In fact, we literally had this past year the best housing sales in 14 years in the U.S., or existing home sales. In the third quarter, we'll talk more about commercial. We sold more commercial real estate in the third quarter of 2021 than any single quarter in history. So it's been a nice place to park your money on the real estate side because the uncertainties where interest rates are going on the bond market and the stock market. Now, I'm older. I know, Bill, you're older, but you're not as old as I am. And I've kind of...
No comment.
But I've kind of, we've taken a large amount of our portfolio out of the market, out of the stock market, because the older you get, the less risk you should expose yourself to if you really want to plan on retirement down the line. And I think that one of those great places to park your money is real estate, and it will continue to be real estate.
Well, in a way, as you're saying, talking about the stock market and real estate, in a way, the way homes are appreciating, people are seeing gains in a couple months. So in a way, it's like if you take a couple $100,000 or whatever and buy a home and you want to get out of it in 5-6 months, maybe 3. I bought a home last year in Arkansas and sold in three months, and it had a gain. So it's like a stock. Good place to put your money.
It is a good place to put money. But on housing, though, I do want to caution this that there are higher transaction costs.
Carrying costs.
Carrying costs, the whole works. But yet our median home price in the latest 12 months, yes, this is through November. We won't have December till mid-January. The median price compared to a year ago is up 13.1%. Average price up 8.2%. Those are pretty doggone good returns. Now, put that in perspective, because my other supply, we talked about interest rates. Inflation's the most it's been in 39 years. And what surprised me on inflation wasn't that it happened. In fact, the 6.8% doesn't surprise me at all. In fact, even do this one. If you live in metros in the western U.S. that are below 2.5 million, their inflation is 6.9% and change. So the smaller markets are actually being more inflationary in the western U.S. than the larger markets are. Kind of intriguing. But what surprised me is the 6.8%, that number doesn't surprise me. What surprised me is interest rates, like on mortgages and commercial real estate, have remained so doggone low. I fully anticipated. And I'll go back to the beginning of this year. In January, we passed the American Rescue Plan. We didn't need that. We didn't have the people to employ to do it. How do I know that? We currently have 11 million open jobs. We've never had 11 million open jobs in history. When we actually did that, we had like 8 or 9 million open jobs. And my question was, how do you do this American Rescue Plan if you don't have anyone to do the jobs? Well, what you do is you say to a worker that's already employed elsewhere, come over and do this job and I'll pay you more. And that's where the inflation's coming from. So this past week, and we're not going to talk politics because I'm disgusted with both sides of the political equation. But the Build Back Better appears to have kind of just disappeared. That doesn't bother me at all, not from a political perspective. My concern was a very inflationary perspective. And the reason is, we entered this month with consumers having $2.7 trillion more in their billfolds, their pocketbooks, their purses, under their mattresses, and their bank accounts than we had in February 2020, which is a month before the doggone pandemic started. You put money in people's pockets. I had a professor at Texas A&M. I loved him. He's now deceased, unfortunately. His favorite line was, if you get a raise, you're just broke at a higher level. When we have money, we spend it. And that's what we're seeing on this inflationary front right now. We've got money burning a hole in our pockets, and people are buying.
So you mentioned interest rates. Why do you think they stayed so low? And we'll get just ahead of ourselves for a second. How long are they going to stay this low? It is amazing that they're this low in this environment for this long.
So let's talk about the Federal Reserve. Now, Federal Reserve has kept rates low. And by the way, at the very onset of this pandemic, in March of 2020, we had leaders from both political parties step up, and they did some smart things. I think the Payroll Protection Plan, the PPP, and what that did, I want you to think back to 2008, 2009. We had a nasty recession. We lost 8 million people over 24 months. You go from 2008, the peak of the market, you drop into 2006, the peak of market, 2010, we lost 8 million jobs. You have to realize that, and how many millions of people lost their homes because they couldn't make their home payment. I mean, they couldn't. They couldn't pay their rent. They got evicted. But what we did, what Congress did, and what have you early on in this thing in 2020, this payroll protection plan said to business America, we're going to make you a loan. If you pay your rent out of that and pay your employees, in other words, don't lay off your employees, we'll write that loan off. And all of a sudden you had all these workers, and realize this, in March of April of 2020, we lost 22.4 million jobs. Now, a lot of those came back. We're still about 4 million short. They'll never come back, I will tell you that. And a lot of people couldn't make their rent payments. About 3.5 million people couldn't make their rent payments, but you couldn't evict them, so they still had a safe place to live, and COVID was part of that. It still is part of it, let's be honest. But what we did is we actually created demand for housing because people they didn't want to live with a bunch of people anymore. They wanted their own unit. And so 2020 saw a massive increase in demand for housing. And as a result, we saw home prices go up. It's all about supply and demand. So what happened? Now, the Federal Reserve, everyone has to realize this, they're a privately owned bank. Okay, politicians get to appoint their chairman and their board of directors, but it's a privately owned bank. The profits don't go to the U.S. government. Let's put that up front. But the Fed has two primary jobs. Number one of them is full employment. And we learned this from Bernanke, that they said we're fully employed if unemployment's between 5 and 5.5% or less. We're at 4% and change unemployment right now, so we're more than fully employed. And the second thing they have to do, their primary concern is control inflation. And again, we learned this from Bernanke. They kind of want to pull the trigger on controlling inflation when it's around 2%. So now let's rewind. Let's go back to 2020, February, March of 2020. Pandemic hits. So what the Fed did, just to make sure that there was cheap money and liquidity in the system, the Fed went to commercial banks every month, and they bought $120 billion worth of securities, treasuries, because that's the way our government borrows money, and banks buy treasuries to hold as reserves. The Federal Reserve recognized that, and mortgage-backed securities. So every month the Fed goes out to the banks across the United States and buy $120 billion. What that means is every month those banks had another $120 billion to loan. So every month we had another $120 billion to borrow out there. So what they announced, but in October, they said we're gonna taper this $120 billion purchase. We're going to cut it back by $15 billion per month. That means between November and July, each month we'd reduce that purchase by $15 billion. You don't want to go cold turkey, evidently. So and then by July, and then I said this 6 months ago. I said I'm willing to bet that the Fed accelerates this slowdown, and sure enough, they just did. They cut it to they're cutting it $30 billion a month. That means by March, they will no longer be buying any securities from banks. The banks won't get that infusion of cash every month they can go loan out. And simple supply and demand of money says supply is going down. Even if demand stays the same, interest rates rise.
So that may happen.
I think in
quarter.
I expect our first rate increase for the Fed funds rate. And the Fed funds rate's kind of a funny rate. That's the rate that one bank can borrow necessary reserves overnight. Every night when a bank shuts down, sometimes banks, you all know this, they close their doors at 3 o'clock. You think they're taking an early home. No. They got to balance all their books of the day. And before the stroke of midnight, they have got to have enough reserves in the bank, given their loan portfolio. And what they do some nights is some days you made too many loans, so you need to borrow some, and some days you didn't make enough loans, so you loan it out. That's what the Fed funds rate is. It's what one bank borrows from another bank. Overnight loans, that's it. So I'm fully anticipating the Fed in March and in 2022, I think they're going to raise rates at least 3 times of the Fed funds rate. Now, that's a short-term rate. And when you and I buy a house, we borrow 30 years. A commercial, it's typically a 10-year loan. Our cars, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. All those mortgages will be impacted as these rates increase.
And as I remember the interest rates these last few years, as they've gone down gradually. So when we see the rise, are we going to see a gradual, slow rise, or you think it'll jump up a bit?
So let me give you...
You know what I'm saying? Because it's like when it was 4.9, it just gradually went to 4.5. Then all of a sudden, it keeps going lower, but it was gradual.
So we're going to talk. It's amazing. We have 2 great sources that forecast interest rates. One of them is Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae is what we call a government-sponsored enterprise. They're unique in that the government may have sponsored them, but they're technically a for-profit corporation now. Right now, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the government sweeps their profits, that Congress does. And then there's the Mortgage Bankers Association. They're a private, nonprofit trade association. Both of these have great economic groups. In fact, one of my classmates when I got my PhD at Texas A&M back in the early 80s was Doug Duncan. He's Fannie Mae's chief economist. And he's brilliant, I will tell you this. But Fannie Mae and the MBA cannot agree what rates will be in the future. And these are the November forecast numbers. We're currently, in 2021, Fannie Mae says we're averaging 30-year conventional fixed-rate loans. That's what most of us have been getting. It's currently 3% average this year, 2021. 2022, Fannie Mae says it only grows up to 3.3%. Actually, their new forecast came out this past week. It's 3.2%, but I haven't got the one from the MBA yet, so I'll just compare apples to apples. And they say by 2023, it's only 3.5%, so that's not much increase. On the other hand, the MBA says no, rates this past year, 2021, averaged 3.1%. They'll be 4% next year. That's a big increase. And they'll be 4.3% the next year. That's even bigger increase. So the experts are disagreeing. One of them says it just trickles up. And the other one says, yeah, we're going to pop up a bunch. And my expectations are it's going to pop up a bunch more than even the MBA expects. I've seen rates increase rather dramatically. This inflation thing is of concern. We're thinking that the average salary gain, for 2022, you might get like a 3.5% raise. Inflation's currently 6.8%, which means you just lost money walking into next year on your salary, but not necessarily your investments. And that's why we like real estate so much.
Okay, let's take a look at where we are right now, especially here in Houston. Let's say there are Houston realtors right now listening. What are some of the things you want to tell those realtors right now about where we're at today and then where we're going to go? We're talking with our chief economist at Stewart Title. He is Dr. Ted C. Jones. So where are we now?
So the latest data we have, housing sales data, are November. Because December's not, we still have a few days here yet to go.
Now, I will say this is our last show of 2021. That's the other strategic thing about it. That's as I do the math when we're recording. Yeah, this is our last show, Ted.
I get that. That's why I said up front, so I'm honored to be part of the last show of the year. But I intend to be on some of your shows next year, so looking forward to that. So let's just talk single family. And the reason we talk single family, 9 out of 10 homes that people own in the Houston metropolitan statistical area, that's Houston, the Woodlands, Sugarland, it's Katy, it's everything out there like that stuff. 9 out of 10 are single family. We're not a high multifamily owned market. We live in a lot of apartments, don't get me wrong, but single family home sales this November compared to November a year ago up 3.9%. That's an all-time record. We've never sold that many homes. In fact, 8,320 this past November. In November. Never sold that many in any November in history. We always talk supply and demand. So demand was up to 3.9%. Supply, that's number of active listings, was down 13.3%. So demand's up and supply is down, which means prices rise. And so in Houston, on our median price, that means half of all homes sold for more and half all homes sold for less. Our median price came in November at $314,000. That's 16.3% year-over-year gain. Man, I tell you what, that's a great return, isn't it? That's absolutely, and you got to live in it too. Think about that. You got to live in it or rent it.
Sure.
Yeah. So what we have right now is a market that's exasperated by a growing demand. The pandemic's caused part of that, and shrinking supply. Now, where do we go this coming year? Once again, the NBA and Fannie Mae can't agree. But on the other hand, we'll thread some facts. One of them thinks sales go up, one of them thinks sales go down. I think if I'm correct about interest rates rising, then I think we're going to see actually a retraction in sales. And it's all being driven by affordability. I've got a number, and it's a sobering number. In fact, one of my biggest long-term concerns, not just on housing, but on the U.S. economy, is affordability. And when I say this, if you have a middle class, typical middle class family, and by the way, a successful country has a big middle class. You don't want that big poor class and a few small rich class. We've seen that in third world countries. That simply doesn't work. We want a big growing middle class.
I'm glad you said that. That's well put. I can understand it when you could see it. You need to have that because you're right. Some of the countries where they're leaving to come here, they have the rich, the very rich, and the very poor.
And very few very rich and a lot of very poor. And they come here because we have the opportunity. And realize this, for the typical middle class family, their largest store of wealth is their house. And if you can't buy into that house initially, you don't get that wealth accumulation that goes on over time. Wealth on housing accumulates a couple ways. Slow and go is I make my mortgage payments, and if home values don't go up 30 years from now, I own it. That's massive, particularly when we're looking over.
And you got to live in it.
And you got to live in it too. You don't have to pay rent.
And the family.
Yeah. And so, but here's two numbers. And remember, I already told you that Fannie Mae and the MBA don't agree on what interest rates are going to do, and they don't agree what home price changes are going to do. But this is a sobering statistic. Let's look at 2020 because we know what rates were and we know what home values were. And let's look at what Fannie Mae forecast for 2023. That's just 24 months down the line, guys. The end of that. And the MBA, Fannie Mae says, and let's assume you buy the median price home, whatever it is, you put 20% down. All right? Fannie Mae says that from 2020, if you compare 2023 to it, your monthly principal and interest payment, that's just interest and your tiny bit of equity, is going to go up 43%. From 2000 to 2023, the MBA says, nope, it goes up 48%. That says to me a large number of people can't play the game of home ownership at that point in time. That's the median price home. Remember, half of them are more and half of them are less. And so my biggest fear for the country long term is we're going to exclude people on affordability. The National Association of Realtors just this past week came out with an analysis. They looked at 178 metros across the U.S. In over 100 of them, you were better off on a single-family home renting it than owning it because it was cheaper to rent it. That's that affordability twist we're getting that switch in. So this affordability on our home buyers right now scares me, and it's not scaring me right now because we have great demand and not much supply, but it scares me the long-term wealth creation and a growing middle class over the next decades to come.
Seems that there's two things. For the total price that a person pays for the home is the price to buy it, as you're saying, it's hard to get in. It could be harder to get. It is hard to get into now, maybe real hard later. However, and then the interest rate. So if it's not one thing, it's another, because years ago when the interest rate was high, that was kind of a barrier, but there were plenty of homes. The homes were less. So it seems like there's always these, and that's why you're the chief economist, Stewart, all these economic factors at play no matter when it is.
Let me put how low interest rates are in perspective right now. In 1989, I was a professor at Texas A&M, just getting ready to become chief economist at the Real Estate Center. My wife and I had a new home built for us, metal roof in College Station, kind of a wraparound porch, Texas country house at its best. And we went to closing in November of 89, and I was thrilled. Walked out of that bank, title company. I got a 9.75% 30-year fixed rate loan. And the reason I was thrilled, it was the first time in over 10 years it had been below 10%, and it had been almost double that 10 years earlier. So we entered 2021 with the lowest 30-year rates in history, 2.65%. We're currently just barely into the threes, so rates are incredibly affordable still. And that's had twofold effect, not just on prospective home buyers and people moving up, but also on current homeowners who are able to refinance their debt at a much lower rate. So all of a sudden, you paid a much less payment, or you may have had 25 years left on your loan. Now you got 15 years left on your loan, and your monthly payment's the same. So if you have not refinanced and your rate's 4% or more right now, you got great opportunities to refinance, but quick. Do it
Get
quick.
there, yeah.
Get there quick.
There soon. Okay, I just thought of a question, Ted, and all the times you've been on, I've never asked this. So here we go. Let's say, knowing what you know, and I'm going to remind people, I said this last week in preparing for you to be here, and that is you are on economics at all times. In the middle of the night, 3 in the morning, you're studying these key indicators. You have your secret sauce of go-to places you go so that you can tell us about what's going to happen and what's going on right now. However, knowing what you know at any given moment, because it's always changing, you're always taking in information, and it changes, and you bring it out to us. But let's say you were a real estate professional. You're a realtor, Ted Jones. You hang up your shingle. You are a real estate agent or broker. Knowing what you know at this point in time, what would you be doing for next year to prepare to make the most of the marketplace? You know,
I will tell you this, and even though I pride myself as a person with real estate knowledge, I always use that consummate realtor professional no matter where I buy a property. And the reason is they know that local market like the back of their hand. They have intimate knowledge that you don't have. In fact, it was intriguing that one of the things that they said, what did you value most about your realtor in the process? NAR just released this profile of home buyers and home sellers, 2020-2021. And you know what? The number one thing wasn't necessarily price negotiation. It was number one, finding the best house for them. Even though we have online search and everything else, like every once in a while that realtor knows, well, I got this little neighborhood over here. You think you want to live here, but I got a better deal over here, and it's actually going to fit you better, because they know that local market. Second thing wasn't price. It was negotiating all the terms. What's included? What personal properties included? Appliances and things like that. Who's going to pay for what repairs? And that's where your realtor, your real estate professional can come in and help negotiate on your behalf, whether you're a buyer or seller. You need that consummate professional on your side. The third one was price. So, first of all, I like to deal with realtors, and when I want to know about a local market, I call up that consummate professional realtor in that respective market. I just do that. Even though I think I know, sometimes they'll tell you things you don't know. We are not the complete vessel of knowledge. There are people out there, experts in their fields, that are a lot more knowledgeable than you are in that market. So that's number one. Secondly, I do read a lot. If you want to know what I read, kind of get an overview, follow me on Twitter. And no, I do not talk politics. I'm disgusted with politics, both parties. Guys, my tweet, DRTCJ, you would know this, for example, if you follow me on Twitter this past month. CoreLogic. They're a great real estate data company, traded publicly, big company. They sell lots of data around the country and the world. They'll tell you that in the latest 12 months, typical home values went up 18%. That's huge. But they'll also tell you this. They only expect home values in the next 12 months to go up 2.5%. I kind of agree with them, because I expect as interest rates rise, I think that growth goes down. In fact, there are some states I think we could see a retreat in home prices. Would not surprise me at all. We're already seeing some markets that are seeing price declines year over year. Think about all the cities that people are moving out of. Go to New Jersey. New Jersey is one of the number one exodus markets in the country. Now, it's been that way for decades, but this pandemic accelerated that.
And on that note, we're going to take a short break and talk more with Dr. Ted C. Jones, Chief Economist at Stewart Title and the eighth wonder in the real estate world. Stay with us.
If you're a real estate professional, then listen closely. Cyber criminals are targeting our industry. They are impersonating real estate professionals, homebuyers, sellers, and title agents. Their goal is to gain access to your inboxes, computers, and clients so they can steal information and funds. Does your business insurance offset these risks? Not sure? Contact Stewart Insurance to determine if your business is properly insured. Visit stewartinsurance.com or call 866-798-2827. Visit stewartinsurance.com or call 866-798-2827.
As we continue with our Chief Economist, Dr. Ted C. Jones. Ted, we have a few minutes left. Man, time flies, doesn't it? So
it does, yes. I'm amazed, yeah.
Again, we remind people, stay tuned to your tweets and all the stuff that you have out there. But recently you had a tweet just a few hours ago about lumber prices. Let's hit that right quick.
This is a unique one. This one came from the Wall Street Journal, and it blew me away. We all know that, let's go back to the pandemic. Pandemic started, we shut down. And no one thought anything would happen, so the sawmill shut down. They didn't cut any new inventory before they did. And then all of a sudden, after about 30 days or 60 days at home, we realized I need a better place I live in. If I'm going to be at home, I'm going to live in a good place. In fact, I argue that we literally hit the highest intrinsic value of housing in our lifetimes because we spent more time at home than any time in our lives. Therefore, our house or apartment or condo where we live impacted our quality of life and our lifestyle more than it ever had, and people wanted to live better. So we started building, and so we saw the huge shortage, and we saw lumber prices just explode. And then they came back. But here was the tweet. I'll read it to you. Lumber prices skyrocketing once again. January 2022 futures for delivery. In other words, if you're a home builder and you want lumber delivered to your site and you want to go through the futures contract, it's now $1,089.10 per 1,000 board feet. Twice the price for prompt delivery just this past November 2021. So we saw a commodity in 60 days more than double in price.
In 60 days.
In 60 days. Now, I don't know about y'all, and I hope you haven't had to do this. It's just not on lumber. It's on anything. That's why I said earlier on, inflation is a massive number, and it's going to be bigger than we ever imagined. I hope you did not lose an appliance anytime since the pandemic started. In June of 2020.
I got a bad dishwasher, Ted, right now.
Oh, there you go. Now you're laughing. Yeah.
I'm going to have to be buying one.
Good luck. In June of 2020, our 10-year-old washing machine died. And when you buy a new washing machine, you always wanted to buy a new dryer. And I wasn't buying like a Bosch from Germany. I'm buying a Speed Queen from Wisconsin. I like this U.S.-built stuff. 3 months. I was a laundromat on Saturdays feeding quarters into machines for 3 months. I hadn't done that since I was in college, guys. And, so
I'm picturing that. Yeah.
This past week, we literally had to go down to buy a new cooktop and extract air thing, and they said, well, we might get it for you in February, into February, but don't hold your breath. So, all right. So, yeah, the tweets, I mean, it's amazing that the amount of information you get to see where I read and what have you. This is another one, and I want to throw
Tell them the Twitter handle again.
DRTCJ, Dr. Ted C. Jones, DRTCJ. This is one of them, too, from this past week. And it looks like we're coming up that again, Omicron and everything else like it. Looks like we're going to be maybe spend a little more time at home. We don't know yet. In fact, I don't think anyone's ever told us the truth on this. And I don't care if you're a vaxxer or an anti-vaxxer, you're not happy. Let's just put that out there. Equal opportunity opposed to all this kind of stuff. But this is an amazing statistic on this one. And compared to pre-pandemic numbers, February 2020, demand for second homes and investment properties was up 83% in November of this year compared to February 2020. And that's only one. Guys.
Some people are buying those second homes just to have spare appliances, just to have a spare.
Could be, I thought of that, but that's good. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I want to tell people, I know you're enjoying hearing Ted talk about all these things, and we only have so much time, but I want to give you some great news, and that is you can actually see, especially here in the Houston area, but Ted also travels around the country. But right here in Houston, Stewart Title, we have business development people, and Ted, on the week of January 17th, for that full week, he's doing 7 live presentations. They're live as far as we know right now. Live presentations where you could see Ted, might even be able to ask some questions, but we put this on at Stewart Title through our business development people at their respective office. So all you have to do, if you're in the Woodlands, if you're inside the Loop, wherever it is, just look for your closest Stewart Title office and find the business development officer, or just call the office and say, hey, you want to be at one of the events with Dr. Jones. They'll hook you up. It's that easy. So once again, you can see Ted in person. It's an incredible presentation. And by the way, Ted, on that note, you always give your presentation a tremendous name that rings true of the content of it, and also sometimes is very entertaining. What is it this year?
So this year, this past year, it was the 3 R's, the 3 R's, because we did old school, and I thought chalkboards and what have you. This coming year, I've decided it's Econ 101. It's all about supply and demand. Your first economics class at college, you learned about supply and demand, and what we're facing right now, you just look at supply and demand, you can answer these questions.
That's right. And we think about the demand. I see it on Facebook a lot lately where the Houston realtor puts up the price or puts up the picture of the home on the market 3 days, 22 offers sold. I mean, it's like, come on.
It's amazing. I just did a study, and not all states are equally hot. For example, in the U.S., and we're going to use the November numbers, or October, I don't remember which one. In the U.S., an average home is listed, and within 17 days, you have an accepted signed contract. 17 days nationwide. That used to be 6 months. That used to be 90 to 180 days.
It was a longer
17
process,
days.
Yeah.
But to show you that all states aren't equal, because you talk about how different states are, in New Mexico it was double that. It was 34 days. Not every economy is the same. There's no such thing as a national economy. It's all local. And in New Mexico, it's taking twice as long to get someone just to sign on a purchase contract on those properties. And New Mexico is not one of the worst states in the country, economically speaking. It's just not growing as much as the others, and many of the others.
We could say safely Texas is a desired state right now. Tell us about the other states. There's a few that are even hotter. Is that correct?
So the hottest 2 states in the country are Utah and Idaho.
No, I never thought.
Well, all right.
Utah and Idaho.
So let me talk.
Those are the states that sometimes we forget about. A lot of people do.
Remember I talked to you earlier in the show that this pandemic accelerated current trends. One of those trends we've had in California for 50 years is people have been leaving California. It is higher tax. Tax-wise, according to the Tax Foundation, it's the 49th worst place in the United States tax-wise to do business in. 49th worst. Only worse than that's New Jersey. And right after California is New York, and then Connecticut and Minnesota. Those are the 5 worst places tax-wise. And so what you've had is a large number of people, and the pandemic accelerated that just said, I'm not going to pay these taxes. I don't want to live in this density of people. And as they departed, a lot of them went to Boise, Idaho in particular. Idaho, home prices this year statewide have gone up 39% year over year. 39% year over year. Think about that. Phenomenal return. But there's other things going on too. You look at Silicon Valley, because California was the home to tech. And it's getting so expensive there. And now that we know we can work from any place, just not work from home. I can work where I want to work from. Just a couple of weeks ago, we're down at our place in Galveston. I was sitting there doing presentations across the country. As long as I had internet, Wi-Fi access, it's that amazing. But on the tech side, we're looking at cities such as Austin, Texas. We got 6 major Silicon Valley firms heading into Austin or already there. Look at Tesla and everything else like it. One of the other ones, Utah. Salt Lake City, Provo, Orem, that's one of the new tech capitals. Fort Collins, Colorado, another one of the tech capitals. We're not going to replace Silicon Valley overnight, but it sure is a lot easier for these firms to do business, a lot less costly. And it's also where their employees want to live, because a lot of people are having enough of the density and the other issues that go along with high taxes and what have you. So come down that list. 4 states now have more jobs than any time in history before the pandemic. Utah, Idaho, Texas, and Arizona. Then I got another couple states that are almost close to breaking even. Montana's only down 0.5% in jobs from what they were in February 2020. And Nebraska's down 0.9, as is Arkansas. Georgia's only down 1%. Now, let's do the flip side. Hawaii. Hawaii is still tough. In fact, I would not at all be surprised if Hawaii shuts down again. The second worst is New York, Louisiana, Alaska, Vermont, D.C., Nevada. It goes on from there.
1 minute left, Ted, before we close this segment. What else do you want people to know?
Boy, if you haven't refinanced your home and you're
Get there.
If you don't know what lender to call your local realtor, because they know the lenders like the back of their hands. Secondly, I expect inflation to be onerous this coming year. And I'm, as I told you up front, I'm a little scared of the bond market, and I'm really scared of the stock market. Not all stocks. Some stocks are going to be great buys, don't get me wrong. But real estate, I think, is the big winner. But every state and every locale is different.
Thank you so much. And, of course, you can see Ted coming up this January 17th, the week of. Not sure what day he's going to be in the different areas. However, just go to Stewart.com. If you already know your Stewart Title Business Development Officer, reach out to them. They'll be advertising, but just ask them what's going on. And in the meantime, Ted, thank you so much for being on the show. If we have a minute or two left at the end, we'll bring Ted back. But thank you once again. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and all that. We're going to have you back next year real soon.
Look forward to it. Gig 'em.
Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title would not be possible without our partner, Stewart Insurance. With a focus in real estate and a special focus on real estate brokers, Stewart Insurance creates insurance plans to address the risks facing our industry today. They invest a significant amount of time helping real estate broker owners offset and manage their risks for the final show of the year, but not the final appearance. Here he is, John Bramlett with Stewart Insurance. John, here we are.
Welcome, Bill. Happy holidays.
Yeah, and same to you. I love this time of year. It for so many reasons. We're at the end. We're at the beginning. It's awesome.
It is. It's fantastic, and we're fortunate. We're actually having a little bit of cool weather this week. It sounds like Christmas for Houstonians will be back up into the high 70s, but at least for today and tomorrow, we've got a little bit of cooler weather.
And I love it. Like I said at the beginning of the show, if you tune into the YouTube, I have my lumberjack flannel Christmas Hallmark. It's a standard sweater. I think, not that I watch the Hallmark Channel, but I think they all wear this same sweater around Christmas. The black.
I think you watch the Hallmark Channel, and that's exactly. You probably bought it from the Hallmark Channel.
Well, that's probably right. Insurance is always good to talk about any time of the year, at the end of the year, at the beginning. And since we're at that point, here you are with more information for us.
Well, you had mentioned in your kind introduction about one thing that you liked about this time of the year was it's kind of the beginning and the end at the same time. And there's a great book that the folks at Stewart Insurance use all the time. And we, for all of our new associates, that's really kind of one of the first assignments they have is to read the book, and we talk about it with them. And the book is 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management. It's written by a gentleman named Kevin Cruz. And it's a fantastic book. And as our listeners are wrapping up the year and getting ready for 2020, it's a really good book to read to kind of get yourself going for the year and to really take a look at how you operate and how you can be more effective. The author interviewed 7 billionaires, 13 Olympic athletes, 29 straight-A students. So I think you were in that group that he interviewed.
Yeah, exactly.
And 239 entrepreneurs to find out what are the productivity habits that they have? What makes them so productive? And he interviewed all those folks and turned around and developed this book. And there are 23 key areas in the book that he covers. And it's an easy read. It's only 201 pages. But it's really a fantastic book. And I just wanted to share some of the highlights that came out of it.
Let's do that. Reminding people again, the title of the book is
15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management. Written by Kevin Cruz.
And Cruz is Kruse.
That is correct.
And let's just hold that to the YouTube camera while we begin on some of the things that impressed you about the book. It sounds like a great recipe to learn something in short order, really.
Absolutely. Now, there's no paid endorsement here. It truly is a book that every member of our team, when they come on board, they get. The first thing that he tells us is he reminds us of the number 1440. That we all have 1,440 minutes in a day. So everybody, whether it's Bill Knapik, John Bramlett, Tom Carpentier, Larry Warren, whomever, We all have 1,440 minutes in a day.
That's right. Now I'm remembering the book.
Yes. So how do you use those 1440? So that's really the crux of the thought. Another key element that comes out of here that I think is really important is to think MIT, and not the university in Massachusetts, but think MIT, most important task. What is the most important task that you need to accomplish today? And put that first on your calendar. That's another area that he really stresses is to-do lists versus calendars. When you read Cruz's book, you will find that he is a proponent of calendars, not of to-do lists. If there's something that you want to do, you put it on the calendar, you schedule it so it gets done. So I'm
not trying to be a wise guy, but I'm thinking I'm putting it on the calendar to make my to-do list. But
that's fine. In fact, I reached out to him about that, and I said, so what do you do with something that you want to accomplish, but you're not quite ready to put it on the calendar because you're not sure when you can get it done? Is that okay to keep a list of those? And he responded back and said, absolutely. But when you're ready to execute on something, you put it on the calendar.
So the execution, because in a given day, now you think about this, yes, that makes perfect sense, the most important thing or things. But when we think about what we do every day, and sometimes I'm getting this, some of these things aren't important. We shouldn't even do at all. However, but in any given day, even if they're all important to some degree, we do many things every day, most people.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of what is really critical. And it just forces you to think through. He provides some great clarification on procrastination. That that there's a misconception about it that you're lazy, and you're not lazy. It's just how you prioritize. And he gives you 6 procrastination busters that you can think about that can help you minimize
I need
that.
Those. Yeah, just tell us about at least one.
So there's time travel. So in a sense, what would tomorrow be like if I got this done? He has a couple that are similar called pain and pleasure and reward and punishment. So some people, carrot and stick idea. Some people are better off with a reward, and some people are better off with the pain. If I don't do this, what's going to happen? Or if I do this, what will I get? One of the other ones is to settle for good enough. So it's the idea of focusing on progress, not perfection. So it's sometimes 80% is good enough. Get it done and move on. Because if you wait for perfection, it's not going to happen.
Now, I'll relate that to people right now buying real estate, or really at any time in history. Sometimes people have such requirements that they end up not buying, or they get run over by this brisk market where, yeah, it'd be nice to have everything in your house.
Absolutely.
It's not possible.
It's not.
I mean, there's certain things you have to compromise upon, or say, hey, it's not important, I'll get it next time around, because we have to act now, or whatever their situation is.
Absolutely. He talks a lot about notes by hand versus taking notes on a laptop or a phone. And you and I are both proponents of journals. So
here we are. We're holding our journals right up to the YouTube camera. That is correct. So as a matter of fact, I wasn't always a proponent, but hanging around you, I got my journals going a couple of years ago.
But so he's a proponent of that. He's a proponent of morning routines, and there's some really great examples of morning routines in the book. And then the thing that brings it all together that really relates for me is this idea of E-3C. So it's E-the number 3, the letter C. So E is for energy, that you need to have the energy every day in order to be your best and accomplish what you need. So enough sleep, eating energizing food, exercising, having that morning rituals. He talks about pulses and pauses, that when you're working, you work and then you take a break. It doesn't have to be a long break, but you work for a period of time and you take a break. Refresh your mind, then work some more and take a break. So that's the E, energy. The first C is capture. So capture everything into a notebook, capture anything into a notebook. He calls it your external brain. So that's the capture. The second C is calendar, as you would imagine. So again, if you want to do something, put it on your calendar. And part of that is remembering your MIT, most important task, and try to get that done first thing.
This is great stuff, John. What an appropriate book. Let's tell people again the title.
Okay, we got one more C.
Oh, one more C. Go ahead.
That's concentrate. So if you're working from the calendar, it helps you avoid reacting to, I got an email ding again, so I got to look at my emails. Or somebody posted something on social media, so I'm going to take a look at it. Or when we're actually in an office, somebody would say, "Hey, do you got a second?" Now it might be you might get pinged on Teams. "Hey, do you have a second?" If you work from your calendar, that's going to help you with your concentration. So those are the three C's.
That's just great stuff, and there's more stuff in the book. I mean, you're just giving us some highlights here
absolutely.
in a few minutes. But again, the book is called
15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management. It's written by Kevin Kruse, Kruse. And if you were to come and join Stewart Insurance as an advisor or a service representative, and we're always looking for outstanding people, one of the first things you would receive as a new associate would be a copy of the book, 15 Secrets.
That's what's called a signing bonus.
Yeah, but a reading bonus. There we go. Yes, it's your signing bonus. You get a book to read.
And, of course, people know you doing the insurance segment, guest hosting throughout the year, Stewart Insurance. People can be properly insured when they talk to your company and consult with your insurance professionals any time of the year. And the other thing that happens around this time of year, somehow certain insurance policies, it's like, hey, I got to renew that one again?
Absolutely. So, no, we work with clients all over the country. We work with individuals and families on their home, auto, wind, flood, motorcycle, SUV, vacation home, vacation property insurance plans. On the business side, our business insurance partners, we work with real estate brokers, property management firms, independent title and attorney agents on their business insurance with professional liability and cyber liability, general liability plans, workers' compensation, business owners' policies. So a variety of products. We are the insurance resource for real estate.
And all year long, since we've been doing this show, your associates and people that help people with their insurance plans and policies and things like that, they always have had such high value to the client. However, right now in this changing world, the insurance is changing, home, flooding, all these different things are changing in dynamic ways. The value of the insurance professional at Stewart Insurance now just went up 20 notches. So it's more important for people to have that right conversation to be properly insured. And all they have to do is call
866-798-2827. 866-798-2827.
And the website is stewartinsurance.com. It's that easy. You'll see the full menu, a wonderful website. And as we wind up the show, it is that time again. We want to thank everybody, though. Just take an extra minute this time of year. We thank you all for listening to our show, telling others about it. We were hearing reports it's growing, all these extra views, even on the podcast after the fact, on the YouTube channel. And that's simply found at stewart.com/radio. That's stewart.com/radio. So we thank you all this year, and we look ahead. We'll do our best. Our promise, John and I and all the helpers on the show, we're going to do our best to continue to bring solid content. And as we say every show, information will make it entertaining along the way as much as possible. And sometimes inspiration takes place on these radio microphones with the guests right here in the studios and in the studio, but also those that listen to the show, whether you're driving, listening on the internet, or anything else. That's right. Inspiration is an equal component of this thing that we try to do every week. And thank you again, John, for your partnership. Tom Carpentier, Larry Warren, Fred Eppinger for the dynamic leadership at Stewart Title. It's a tremendous thing that we're doing here. We do our best every week. John, what do you want to say before we close this? Last show of the year.
Last show of the year. No, I echo what you said. We are so grateful for our listeners. We're grateful for our iHeartMedia partner. We're grateful for the partnership that Stewart Insurance and Stewart Title has. Our business development officers all over the country that help us find these fantastic guests each week. Grateful for our guests and coming on and providing such fantastic information, and grateful for you for doing such a fantastic job. So thank you, Bill.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for listening. We will see you next year. Remember, tell your friends and simply go to stewart.com/radio. You'll see the things we held up to the YouTube camera. That's right, stewart.com/radio. Thank you so much.